But above all, and in particular, I want to introduce the president of the BRICS New Development Bank. Indeed. But also, I want to introduce the homeboy, the vice president of the bank, and the CFO, Mr. Leslie Masdorp. And our colleagues, the minister and the interministerial committee, IMC. And let me also introduce Ambassador Sukla. Otherwise I lose my job. Ambassador Sukla, welcome. And Mema Khosh here. And excellencies, ambassadors, high commissioners, we know that it was very short notice, and your staff and all other guests, media, commentators, experts, and fellow diplomats around. We really value your presence here. We are very sorry that it was a very, very short notice. But still, the minister believed that it is worth it that you come and interact with Mr. KV Kamath and Mr. Leslie Masdorp from the New Development Bank of BRICS. They've been here over some few days interacting with the South Africans on this subject. And we thought that it might be of great interest to you just to get the thinking behind these BRICS projects. Where is it going? What it intend to do? And how different it might be with the existing multilateral financial organizations. So mine, I nearly forgot to introduce Deputy Minister Landers. Deputy Minister, I'm very sorry, sir. Welcome, Deputy Minister. Apologies. So mine is very simple. It's just to call the speakers to share with you their perspective, their thinking about this subject. So, ambassadors, high commissioner, fellow diplomats, mine will really try now to call on our minister, Minister Nkoana-Mashabane, to share with you her thinking and formally welcome our guest, Minister.
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, High Commissioners and Ambassadors in particular, on behalf of myself, Honorable Deputy Minister Landers and Honorable Deputy Minister Mfeketo in her absence, sometimes we bump into airports crisscrossing the globe because President Zuma thinks that's what we're paid for. Your Excellencies, it's our honor that the first president of the new development bank of the BRICS chose to come and pay a courtesy call to one of the BRICS member states, South Africa. He is not alone. He's accompanied by the Vice President, who happens to be a South African, Mr. Leslie Masdorp, who has now added the responsibility to be the CFO of the bank, not in South Africa, but in Shanghai. Mr. Kamath, Namaste ji, and welcome home. Our Shepherd, Mr. Machila, and Shushepang, Dr. Suklal, representatives of the Interministerial Committee present here, and distinguished members of South African Council of International Relations, or our thinkers who are present here with their excellencies, all other government representatives, representatives of the academia and civil society, members of the media, and all protocol observed. I'm very proud to host Mr. Kamath today on the occasion of this first working visit to South Africa. Mr. Kamath is the first president of the BRICS New Development Bank, and is a seasoned financial expert who has experience of more than 43 years. Please don't ask him about his actual age. If you want to do that, not today. Allow me to introduce Mr. Kamath, and we do that, by the way, with Brand SA Chairperson, Miss Chichi Maponya, seated in front with us. We are introducing him, Mr. Kamath, as the former chair of the ICICI Bank. I know this bank from India because I spent 5.5 years of my life there. India's largest private sector bank, and of Infosys, which is an ICT company limited, which was one of the largest technology services companies. Mr. Kamath also served on the board of Schlumberger Limited. He stepped down from these positions to assume charge as president of the New Development Bank in Shanghai in July 2015. He graduated from the prestigious Indian Institute of Management. I wanted to say, I pray it be Ahmedabad, and it is Ahmedabad, in Gujarat, where Mahatma Gandhi was born. The best, I can say, of the Indian Institute of Management in 1971. When he started his career with ICICI in project finance division, and gained experience, an extensive experience within the company, including setting up new businesses such as leasing, venture capital, credit rating, as well as handling general management positions. In 1988, Mr. Kamath joined Asian Development Bank, ADB, in Manila, in their private sector department. Mr. Kamath returned to India in May 1996 to take over managing director and chief executive at ICICI Bank. The strategic initiatives and structural changes subsequently instituted by him across this group have helped the bank to redraw its boundaries. Mr. Kamath initiated the process of consolidation of the Indian financial sector through a series of acquisitions of several private sector banks since 2001. He achieved an objective of creating the first universal bank in India. Mr. Kamath was conferred with Padma Bhushan, one of India's highest civilian honors, to be given by the President or awarded by the President of India in 2008. He has received widespread recognition internationally and in India, including named CNBC's Asian Business Leader of the Year in 2001, Businessman of the Year by Forbes Asia, and Business Leader of the Year by Economic Times in 2007. Ladies and gentlemen, we have invited Mr. Kamath today to this public lecture in honor, to honor us some of of his thoughts in the New Development Bank, and inter alia, what it intends to achieve in the coming years. The new title, and the title in particular of today, of this lecture, is From Concept to Reality, the BRICS New Development Bank. Since the formation of the Bretton Woods institutions in 1945, no other such venture, maybe others were thought of, but was done in less than a period of 6 years. Therefore, one can expect some new perspectives directly from the bank's president, and it will also provide distinguished guests with the opportunity to engage Mr. Kamath as aspects of the New Development Bank. The New Development Bank of the BRICS is the new generation financial institution that lays the foundation for a more equitable global financial architecture. I would therefore like to outline the significance of this moment in the context of the African continent's aspirations for economic growth, development, and prosperity. You'll recall the underpinning ethos of our NEPAD, namely the balance, ownership, and partnership. You're also familiar with the Agenda 2063's aspirations, which reflect Africa's desire for shared prosperity and well-being, for unity and integration, for a continent of free citizens and expanded horizons, where the full potential of women and youth are realized. I did not exclude men. And with freedom from fear, diseases, and want. We indeed celebrate the culmination of the principles of ownership and partnership in the New Development Bank. The BRICS members are the founding members of the bank, which is further open to all members of the United Nations. It serves as a concrete testimony of the historic Bandung South-South cooperation philosophy of the global South to South cooperation philosophy, for the global South to work together according to principles of openness and solidarity. The time was ripe in 2012 when BRICS leaders and Nobel laureates considered that the advent of new economic powers on global scene required new thinking around the challenges embedded in the current global financial architecture. The financial means and opportunities that these new powers brought to the global economy, also through its continued and exciting exponential growth, potential growth, served as an inspiration to constructing new institutions intended to create a more equitable global order. I am not here to deliver a lecture, but just to say that it is such a coincidence that as our president has just returned, President Zuma, from one of his own kind meeting of heads of states on the sidelines of the COP21. And as we have just come back in September from the unanimous adoption of the SDGs, we now have our brand new president of the bank with us here. Earlier on during lunch, we were saying to him, the African Regional Center of the bank, remember that? It's not, and we pray that it should not be a post office, that it serves indeed as an African regional center that Africans can equally be proud of. And we got that assurance. The SDGs tallies nicely with our own national development plan. So we will see, and we have no other excuse why we as South Africans should not have made major inroads and made successes of our own national development plan with the support of the new Development Bank of BRICS, with the support of the United Nations and the SDGs as we migrated from the MDGs to the SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you the new Development Bank President, Mr. Kamath, to proceed with his lecture. Dhanyavad.
Good afternoon, Excellencies. Ms. Nkoana-Mashabane, Minister for International Relations and Cooperation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I thank the government of South Africa for inviting me to this nation and for giving me this opportunity to share a few of my thoughts. Some thoughts on what I call the current development framework in terms of what is being done, what are the opportunities, what are the challenges, and indeed what is the contribution of the emerging world to the world marketplace, as it were. And then quickly put in context our own role, the BRICS New Development Bank. I think at lunch we had this interesting dialogue as to what is new about the New Development Bank. And as someone put it, that was Minister Patel. He said, will you be new 15 years later? We'll try to attempt to answer those questions. But clearly, I think it's my duty to share what is new and what is different about the New Development Bank, and I'll try to do that. But before I go down that path, I was saying that I'm delighted to make my first trip to any of the member countries of the BRICS New Development Bank, and that trip is to this country. I have had an amazing 2 days of fruitful discussions, which as part of the concept to readiness part of my talk, I will try and cover. But I go back with enormous hope and confidence that what I have seen can be translated to a reality, not only in South Africa, not only in larger Africa, but indeed in all developing countries around the world, which I'm sure in due course the New Development Bank will try and engage with. In many ways, the last 2 decades, the sub-Saharan region has been one of the drivers of global growth. To put this in context, GDP has grown from about 400 billion in 2000 to more than 1.9 trillion in the span of 14 years, and has significantly changed the global equation, as it were. I think the region is an integral part of the South-South cooperation and has grown steadily and strongly, and I am sure it will continue to grow. We indeed the New Development Bank, I call the product of a new South-South cooperation. We are, in a way, the first multilateral development bank to be set up on a global basis by countries of the South. We have an example in south of the US, South America, where there has been an initiative from countries of that region. But we go beyond. We cut across the whole world, as it were, the continents of the world, in setting up this bank. So clearly, I will be remiss if I don't talk about the rise of the South, the challenges in terms of growth, which is, to me, a question of absorptive capacity, and the impact of technological shifts in everything that will happen to us, developing countries. In the last 7 years, since the global economic crisis, recovery has been fragile, and even in the context of unprecedented liquidity in the marketplace, there is uncertainty as to what happens next. In all this, I think it is the emerging countries which have been, I would say, the bedrock of economic growth in the last, post the crisis of 2009. In fact, 75% of the increase in world GDP terms, in PPP terms, since the year 2009 has been contributed by emerging markets. 75% of the increase in GDP. I think the momentum is already there, and we need to see how can we make this momentum reach out to all emerging economies so that growth is even and not patchy. Growth, by that I mean growth is strong in some countries and not so strong in others. How do we make growth equal in terms of its opportunity across the entire developing world? And today I believe that South-South cooperation is now poised to supplement North-South flows. And to me, the fact that 75% of the contribution to the increase in GDP happened from the South clearly articulates this, that South-South cooperation is in a way supplementing what used to be, I would call, North-South transfers. And this is happening not only in terms of finance, but it's also happening, to me, more importantly, in terms of knowledge and sharing knowledge. I think it is only through sharing knowledge that we, countries in the South, can actually realize our fullest potential. Seek knowledge from everywhere around us, and particularly seek knowledge from the learnings that our other countries which are on the emerging route have acquired over this, their journey, as it were. Sound economic policies have contributed to this growth, and I'm sure this growth, which in a way, the beacon light was China, and to some extent India provided the momentum thereafter, and I'm sure it is now Africa which is poised to provide this growth momentum as we go along. And beyond that, the other emerging economies will kick in to keep the growth engine going. In terms of effort required for the developing countries to keep growing, there's always a view that why do we need more development banks? There are already too many. Let me put just a few numbers in context. Various estimates, but if I use one estimate, it talks about the need for $1 trillion investment every year in infrastructure in the emerging world. And if I look at how much was actually brought to the table by the development banks, it was just about $100 billion annually. So we're talking of 10% of the needs met from the development banking world. So clearly, whatever the development banks do is not enough. And there's a role for development banks to help mobilize funding for these efforts, this large effort in terms of adding infrastructure. And thereby, once you add infrastructure, you can then set up your manufacturing program and other industries in sequence. So clearly there is a role. But as the Minister said, we need to share what is different about us. What is it that we will do differently? And that, as I said, I will do in a little while. Before I proceed, I want to spend just a couple of minutes on what I think is a good economic development model that we can, in a way, learn, share, and then emulate. And that model, when I settled in China and looked at that model in a little more detail, to me sounded something very interesting. They first invested in investments in agriculture, animal husbandry, fisheries, water, and flood management. Basically, food security in a way. Secondly, development of massive infrastructure, which anybody who has traveled to China is, can visibly see. Thirdly, development of manufacturing and the industrial sector, as it were. And fourthly, development of the services sector, which is now ongoing, and addressing some of the issues around climate and environment that came as a consequence of the earlier development project. So basically a four-stage process. And whichever way I look at it, this cannot be faulted. And this model is replicable across those emerging countries which have yet to go up this chain. Well, if an emerging country already has the infrastructure and addresses its food security, then you could go to the third stage, but otherwise you go through these stages. And with this effort, what was achieved in terms of growth, sustained growth in double digits for over a decade, and thereafter massive reduction in, I would say, unemployment, and bringing people above the poverty line. About 600 million people brought above the poverty line in the last few years. All this was possible as a consequence of the sort of growth that is taken. So to me, as we start rolling out the new development bank, we can start by sharing some thoughts on what was done in other countries. I took China as an example, but I think there could be other examples which we could use in terms of enriching our knowledge as to what could be done down the development, our development path. Today, there are exciting developments happening all over the country, and I will just pick one, and then we could look at how different things are today from what things were, say, 10, 15 years back. 10, 15 years back, let's say we were, an emerging country was setting up a power plant. Perforce, it went in for a coal plant, and there was finger pointing that you are basically polluting the environment, and you are the problem. I think today we can, I would say with full confidence that we will be part of the solution and not the problem. And maybe in a historical context, the problem was from elsewhere. I won't go down that path, but today we can be part of the solution. How? I think green technologies are coming up, which even as we talk on an annual basis are becoming more and more competitive. And if we were to embrace green as a principle in terms of our development context, it becomes a part of the solution and you don't stay a part of the problem. I think these are the thoughts that we will have to explore as we go along to see how is it that we will be different in terms of our efforts to have some challenges which historically appeared not solvable, solved even as we go down the growth path. Clearly, as I said earlier, if 100 billion is the funding that is coming from development banks and the demand is $1 trillion, you have a challenge. And what we believe we would then like to do is do our own bit to help resolve this challenge in terms of what we bring to the table for our member countries. And that probably is a good time for me to shift gears and talk about the new development bank and what we intend to do. Indeed, as the Minister indicated, we have tried to act with speed. We were in a form incorporated or came into being in early July. I moved to Shanghai with a few colleagues in mid-July or third week of July. And we are at a stage where we can now say that the foundation has been laid, the policy framework is in place, and we should be able to get to lending our first or making our first loan to all our member countries, maybe a loan each to all our member countries by April of next year. This brings forth several questions. How could you work at speed? Are there going to be compromises in the things you do, and so on? And I want to put those things in context. I believe that things can be done in parallel. Our initial startup capital, as it were, was human capital contributed by our member countries. There were secondees from member countries. There were secondees from institutions in member countries, and all of them worked together to basically, I would say, create this foundation and let us get ready for takeoff, as it were, as an institution. And that stage we now reached. So we will be in a position to start our own recruitment starting the coming month. And we should have a complement in place by April or May. But then you may ask, if that is so, we have just heard you say that you want to make your first loans by April. So we will continue with some of the very experienced secondees that we have in terms of project preparation, project appraisal, and the whole lending process, as it were. And they will work in parallel as we start recruiting, get our teams up, help us meet the deadline we have set for ourselves. This deadline, I think, is a shared deadline. I have shared this deadline with our board, and this deadline I shared with the governors when we first met in Russia at the time we came into being, that we will do our first loan in April, and I think we are scheduled to do that. In doing that, we need to be different, and this is where I will share what is the difference that we will bring to the table, or in terms of our approach that we will bring to our member countries. I think the principal difference that we will bring, I hope, is going to be speed. And that speed is critical for the emerging world. We will run out of time if we do not act in speed. So typically, we cannot afford a 2.5 year appraising time for a project. We cannot afford thereafter delays in project execution because you have certain conditionalities which prevent execution of the loan or execution of the project. I think these are the things that we would like to address up front, while not compromising on any of the best practices, be they with regard to the environment or be they with regard to procurement. I think that is clearly part of our strategy. We do not want to be the problem. We want to be part of the solution. So without compromising any of these things, could we look at, for example, the country systems that have been in place in our member countries? And we have taken a quick look at the country systems in place in our member countries, and you find these are adequate to meet best practices in the areas that I was talking about. So can we not adopt these country services as foundational principles in terms of what we go about to do? I think these are the differences in terms of our approach, which we believe will make speed possible as we go along. That's one fundamental difference. I think the other fundamental difference, right in the beginning, I shared with our own board and owners, is it not time that if we say that this is an institution set up in the South-South context, that we try to see whether we can raise the resources that we need in the South amongst our member countries. So, for example, is the market, that is the capital market which will provide your funding, deep enough in our member countries? Is it deep enough in China? Is it deep enough in South Africa? Is it deep enough in India? And I will then explore other countries as we go along. The answer to me, even sitting and doing a desk exercise in China, was the Chinese market is deep enough, and I could easily access renminbi for the New Development Bank in amounts that will meet our requirements without any particular problems. And whatever there would have been in terms of preconditions for somebody to access markets, I believe the government will be willing to address those constraints and make it possible for us to access these markets. My quick study in India indicated the market is deep, and virtually there are no constraints. We could access the market today because there are no constraints that have been set up by the government or the regulator in access to the marketplace to raise monies. I came to South Africa yesterday, and one of the first meetings that I had was with the savers, the pension funds, the mutual fund association. Now I asked them a very simple question. If we were to access this market, first, will we crowd out somebody else who wants to raise money here? Will we crowd out other borrowers or other people who are accessing this market? And the answer was a categoric no. This market is deep enough, and we would expect that we will, by your coming in here, get newer instruments in which we can invest. So clearly it is a win-win for us. I put the same question to the CEOs of the top 5 banks that I met today, and I had the same answer. And I had a team and I had a dialogue with the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Again, they welcomed us and said this market is ready for you to access. We don't see any conditions which will stop you. So market in the South, in at least 3 members out of 5 that have done some preliminary work, clearly indicate to us that these markets are ready to be accessed and ready to meet a fairly large proportion of our needs. If we need, certainly, we will access the global markets. If a client needs money, we will access the global markets and provide that currency. But the point that I'm making is, start with simplify your processes. To simplify those processes, make sure that you do not compromise on the standards that you want to emulate. Secondly, try to access lower money, to access monies in your own home countries. Next comes a very interesting question. If you have raised monies in your home countries and you want to lend it in another member country, is it possible? And indeed, I think our founding fathers had talked about a contingency reserve arrangement for our currencies, separate from the BRICS New Development Bank, but it's the BRICS Contingency Reserve, under which, again, without being too technical, swap arrangements are being worked between our currencies, between the currencies of the 5 BRICS countries. And today, before coming here in the morning, we had a dialogue with His Excellency the Governor of the Reserve Bank, the South African Reserve Bank. And it was music to my ears when he said a currency swap which will make possible to borrow in one currency in a BRICS country and lend it to another is eminently doable. He basically said nothing is going to stop this. There are no issues which would stop this. And during lunch with the Honorable Minister, she promised that she will be the advocate to try to push this across the BRICS members. So I think if we can push this single thing through, 1, raise money locally, 2, swap them so that you have currencies that can flow from one member to another seamlessly, I think you have met a big challenge that otherwise in a developing context emerging country faces. And that problem is the problem of what I term as currency fluctuation and exchange risk. I would say that most developing countries have made a mistake in the past. I was a borrower in my old avatar, as it were, as in ICICI. ICICI is probably the largest number of credit lines from global multilateral banks. And the exchange risk impact was the equivalent of 15 to 20% in interest rate terms, whereas the interest rate was very small. But in our mind, it has been set that the interest rate is the key. I think for an emerging country, the interest rate, frankly, doesn't matter. It is the exchange risk that you bear on that hard currency loan, which is unhedged, which is the crushing thing. And if we use our local currencies, that risk is eliminated. So you may end up paying a little more in terms of interest, but that burden on your head is off forever. So I would think that it is possible to work with the local currencies and make this bank different. So to me, these are some of the characteristics of newness. Newness in terms of your approach to certain aspects which previously caused delay, newness in terms of the speed which you want to bring to the table, newness in terms of the funding choices you bring to the table, and so on. The fourth newness is in relationship to what I would call the way we approach our member countries. I want to drill down in the team, and our team, and which we've already done, the thought that we are talking of a partnership. We are talking of partnership with our member countries. We are not talking of a borrower-lender relationship per se. We are talking of a partnership, and as partners we will talk, understand, and then do what is required in the member countries. So basically work with the member countries. And I think in that spirit, we want to approach the most important thing that, most important point that Honorable Minister made, our setting up of the African Regional Center. We certainly do not look at the African Regional Center as a place where what is collected in terms of messaging here is sent to the headquarters, but a place where if we have to give effect to what I said, a partnership, that partnership is worked out. That partnership in terms of, and I again want to stress, it is the African Regional Center, so basically it will be a partnership for looking at opportunity in this whole continent, as it were, and working with the member countries, firstly in what I would call project preparation, and thereafter, as we go and build strength in terms of appraising projects, and certainly in terms of implementation of projects and all the handholding that is required at that point in time. So the entire spectrum, I think, is what we want to do as we go along in terms of the African Regional Center. And it's for that reason I shared this thought that we have no preconceived notions as to how big this enterprise or this institution should be. It will be as big as we as partners determine. And I think that determination will happen very soon. So several things which are different, several things which we want to do differently. And my deliberations in the last, as I said, 2 days gives me enormous confidence in terms of all the opportunities, in terms of the preparedness, and in terms of probably our ability to attract talent from this country. Last 2 days, that has been a key theme when I have interacted with the various groups that I mentioned, trying to understand the talent pool, and I am convinced the talent pool is very deep, and we at the New Development Bank can certainly leverage this talent pool into our activities as we go along. So I go back to Shanghai with thoughts of a partnership which is in the making, which will certainly be win-win, not only to our partners in this country, our member country, our founding father as it were, but to the larger African continent. In terms of speed, I want to make a last point. Even as I speak, my colleagues from the bank are coming into this country to discuss a project pipeline which was shared with us just a few days back. And if I assure you that this was not pre-planned by me, because I am here, you will not believe me. You will say it's too much of a coincidence that you happen to be here and they just dropped in. But it is a frank truth, because the leader of the delegation met me just before I was leaving and said, "When are you in South Africa?" I said, "On these days." He said, "Oh, I am reaching there a day later or 2 days later." But I think that too, I'm happy that it happened that way, because that indicates the intent that it is not just a top-down push to take what they have in terms of on their plate, as it were, and address it with speed, but it is part of the process, and the internal mind, works in that. Their mind works in that direction to realize what we need to realize. Finally, to conclude, as I said, we at the NDB will listen, learn, collaborate, and innovate. I think these are the key phrases that my colleagues and I will like to build into our operations. As I said, we will work with speed, and a significant aspect of this path is to establish an setup here which will help us speed up activity in across Africa, and that is our African Regional Center. And clearly, we are conscious that we may not be able to be present in all areas of the agenda of development in our member countries, but we'll endeavor to be in those where we believe we could be capable of adding value. The last couple of days I have learned a lot. I take it back with me, and I also take back this message that in the development process, this process is more like a marathon than a sprint, and we will run this marathon with our member countries. Thank you, Madam, for inviting me.
Well, that has been your live crossing to Pretoria, where the president of the BRICS New Development
Thanks very much, Mr. President, for the tour you took your excellencies through, sharing frankly your ideas and the perspectives of the bank. May I also recognize the Dean of the DIRCO, Ambassador Mbongo. Sorry, sir, I will see when you come, but welcome, you are recognized, Dean. Thank you very much. Now, excellencies, you heard from the president about his thoughts. So we thought we'd go as follows. You make comments, very short comments, or you ask questions, very short questions. As you rise up, introduce yourself, and you do share. Share with us the country from which you originate, or which you represent, or the organization, or the institution. I'm going to give you 30 minutes to interact with the president of the bank. So, the floor is open. Any comments? Any questions? Yes, sir. You have the floor. Right.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Helmo Price from the BRICS Post. I'm from South Africa. I represent a BRICS organization. Could you tell me something similar to the SDA? And then also in terms of leverage, the 100 billion, can we get 1 trillion or 2 trillion out of that?
Thank you. That was brief. I think you have to emulate him. The other hand? No, take about 4 of them. Yes, sir. Can you bring the mic here? Yes, sir.
I'm Alexander Nietzsche from the Russian TASS News Agency. Mr. Kamath, can you say how much has been paid to the authorized capital of 50 billion, and if possibly the breakdown, which country contributed how much? South Africa has reported to pay the first installment of 150 million. And maybe Mr. Marsdorf would answer, when will the regional center in Africa open, and will Mr. Marsdorf will also be the chief of it, or there will be another boss of this center? Plus, you said you play country, but does it depend on the contribution paid so far or not? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Straight to the question. The Dean wants to lead from the front. Ambassador, you have the floor. Don't sabotage the Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Kamath. Listening to you, it's like a breath of fresh air, because we know in the developing world how much we have suffered from the traditional development institutions, especially with respect to the conditionality and so forth. You have mentioned the word project preparation many times. And you also mentioned the absorptive capacity. Sometimes the two are linked because of a lack of capacity for project preparation, we seem to think that we don't have the absorptive capacity. Basically, just the inability to identify projects and do a project preparations. Now, are you willing to accompany the countries, the borrowing countries, into their project preparation processes up to the project implementation? Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. I'm going to take the last hand, if it is the last hand in this round. Excellency, there is a mic behind you. You have the floor, Ambassador.
Yeah, my name is Roosevelt, Ambassador of Suriname. I'm highly impressed by this brief, very sharp presentation. I applaud the whole process of BRICS. I'm thinking about the critical success factors. And Mr. Kamath, you basis of your long experience in banking, that there should be other one. So, one important thing that I want to say is the levels at which the BRICS should be supported. There are various levels, the macro, meso, and micro level. I'm thinking about the degree of integration of the planning. As you have the national plannings of the member countries, but you have also the regional planning. How far does this planning, these three echelons of planning, can affect the risk and success and failure factor? Can you go very shortly on that?
Thanks, Ambassador.
Thank you. Very interesting questions. The first is, we plan a very simple product, which is basically bonds, the markets that we will operate in. It's primarily member countries. Of course, due course, the hard currency markets as necessary. The leverage will be what I would think is conservative to start with, because we have to also keep an eye on what the market expects from us in terms of where they want the rating of this bond to come through. But in that, there's a very interesting thought that I want to push. Do you actually need a AAA? This is something that I'm sure our board will debate, because AAA puts a lot of constraints on you. And typically what happens is your leverage is constrained, which means how much you can lend your members. Second, you are required to hold a large amount of liquidity, which again means what you can lend to your member is constrained. So we will have to actually tread this path carefully. What is that rating which gives you enough access to money at an attractive rate of interest, which you can then lend to your member countries without storing it in your treasury? If I were to make a problem statement, that would be the problem statement, and I'll ask my colleague, let him ask Dr. Solve it, and thereafter raise monies and the leverage. So rather than give a straight answer, I would articulate what is the position, work with the experts, and then work it out. The second question was on paid-in capital. What we will look at in the tranches. The first tranche is due in the first week of January, and it is even for every member. It is $150 million to start with. I think that's the appropriate level that you should play at, because then we will look at raising monies in the markets that you're talking of, build that experience, and then by then the tranche will come. Tranches will come in periodic intervals. All members will bring in their monies at the same time on the same day. And clearly, this is a shared effort, and it would be dealt with as a shared effort by member countries, as I see it. In terms of, there is also, I think, a linked question in terms of project preparation. Or other projects that our countries will submit. Those projects will happen because we are in dialogue with the countries, asking them to give us projects which they think have merit. We will look at it whether that fits in within what we are currently doing. And I must say that as of now, the dialogue has gone very well, and the projects that have been prepared by our member countries are fully in consonance with what we need. So that's the way projects should be done. So there is no direct link between the loans and the capital that a country has brought in, because all are bringing in equal amounts of capital, and everyone is submitting projects which we believe we will be able to do. There's another question whether Leslie will look after the ARC. The way we look at it is the ARC is going to have somebody who is bread and butter. He is accountable for making loans and assistance available to a country. That person look after the ARC. And that will be the vice president in charge of lending operations, a gentleman by the name of Xian Zhu. Xian has spent a large amount of his career in the Asian Development Bank, and just before he came to us, he was vice president of the World Bank. So he brings that commitment, and he will be in charge of the ARC. This is a question on project preparation. Clearly, I agree with what was said, that we need to build capacity, and capacity can be in two ways in project preparation. I would think that from what little I have seen, there is a need to handhold in the preparation process, and there possibly is a need to handhold in the implementation process. By that, we do not then find an excuse and say, oh, there may not be absorptive capacity. If we, in a partnership way, decide that there is a challenge in absorption, there's a handholding required, I will suggest to my team that we need to move along that path to handhold and see what is required to execute the project in that country, and let it come up to speed very quickly, but not defer assistance because there could be a challenge. We work with the country. That would be what we would do. The question, I think, here on what level will you work at, macro, micro, or how you integrate with the national plans. Again, our approach is we will work with the countries rather than be a part of the planning process per se. I would put it this way, that we will be the catalyst in sharing what has been done elsewhere, sit with the member and then say, within this context, what strikes you as interesting, and work in a collaborative manner rather than prescribe, rather than condition. I don't think that will be the approach we would be taking. We hope this is something that, again, which is new and different.
Thanks, Mr. President. I am going to take a few more hands if you still have them. The floor is still open. There is a hand here. Leslie. Okay. Leslie, keep them in mind, right? Okay, Chief.
I'm Peter Fabricius from African News Agency. Could I ask you, Mr. President, will the African or the South African operation be different from the others members in the sense that more loans will go into Africa rather than South Africa, if you know what I mean, compared to, Chinese loans going to the Asian region, etc. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Any other question? It seems you are satisfied. It was thorough. Mr. Kamath, can you take this question? Then I will invite Leslie to take the rest.
The answer to this question is very simple. I think we will look at all members as on the same slate. So it won't be what is raised here going to only countries here, and within that will some country other than the host, which in this case is South Africa, they get less. No, nothing like that. I think what we raise in across all members across the markets goes into a pool, and that pool we decide in terms of who and where it could go. And I think in the initial phase, the borrowing countries are going to be the founding members. So I would think that the task is easy. I think as we expand, the only way that we can meet our commitment is to increase the pool of resources that we have for lending, and that we will develop as we go along.
Thanks, Mr. President Kamath. Can we give him applause? I think, thanks so much, Mr. President. Vice President Leslie Masdop, the question was sent to you. Can you reflect on it? And also, there was a strong instruction from the President. So please come on.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Majila, and thank you to the Minister for having us here. It's great for me, obviously, to be back home and to be accompanying Mr. Kamath here. I think everything has pretty much been said, and the President has, in my view, answered most of the questions. I do just want to add something about the Africa Regional Center. I think the original BRICS concept, if you like, constituted these four major nations, and the African continent as a whole was not really represented. So I think it is very significant that South Africa is in there, and it's also very significant that the name of our regional office is not the South Africa Regional Office, it is the Africa Regional Center. We are part of a continent, and this project preparation, project identification capability will, over time, as the New Development Bank and as BRICS expand, will play a role on the rest of the continent. So the Africa Regional Center, once established, will in the first instance look at opportunities in South Africa, but over time that will grow. And we're really excited about the role that the bank will play in working together with institutions like the DBSA, like the Africa Development Bank, like the Industrial Development Corporation, like the PIC, all of these financing agencies. We will aim to complement them and work in partnership, as Mr. Kamath has said. Thank you very much for listening to us today.
So, Mr. Masdop, thanks very much. Is there a follow-up? Mr. Masdop, they say you have not answered the question.
Mr. Masdop, how do you feel as the CFO of the bank which begins from the greenfield? Are you sure in its success?
Mr. Masdop, you have the floor.
You know, the New Development Bank is a very fascinating, unique, and interesting creation. It is a startup. I don't think Mr. Kamath used those words today, but he has been consistently over the 4 months accurately described the bank as a startup. But it's a startup of a special type, if you like. It's a startup with $100 billion of callable capital from some of the largest economies in the world. We are located in China. China is a $10 trillion economy. Over the next number of years, will overtake the US as the biggest economy in the world. Brazil, a market of the 7th largest market, consumer market in the world. Russia, South Africa, these are all the biggest and most significant players in the world today. Just to give you a bit of a statistic, in 2000, in the year 2000, all of these BRICS countries, their combined contribution to world GDP was 11%. That number today is north of 23%. So these nations that constitute the BRICS have within it the growth engines that will propel the world forward, and as Mr. Kamath had said, are the major contributors to global growth today. So your question was whether, as a Greenfields, whether we can be successful. Absolutely. We have, as I said, parents who are both willing and able to not just stick to the legal commitments of the initial 50 billion authorized capital, but also when new capital is required, we believe our parents will be able to step in and enable and fuel the future growth of the bank. Thank you.
Minister, the President, the Vice President, and colleagues, excellencies. Now I think it's time when I asked the chair of Brand SA, Ms. Shishimaponya, to come and thank all of you for honoring us with your presence and for actively participating in this lecture. Mema Ponya.
Thank you, Ambassador Machila. Minister Maite, Nkoana-Mashabane, Deputy Minister, the Dean, Ambassador Mpoko, our guest of honor, and your deputy, distinguished guests, members of the media. Mine is a simple but big task, simple but significant. Mr. Kamath, we want to thank you for having chosen your maiden roadshow journey to start here. This is the cradle of the world, and indeed you have chosen this to be your first visit as you visit your member countries. We have listened to you. You had very interesting things to say, and I think from the nods that I was watching around and some questions, we have been waiting in great anticipation. And I think we are not going to be disappointed. From concept to reality, in less than 6 years, you have managed to establish the offices. The bank by the member states was established, and you have chosen as your differentiator one of the key elements to be speed. And if any of this is to go by, we believe that you will achieve that. You say that the BRICS New Development Bank is an expression of the South-South cooperation relations. And we believe that to be true. And as South Africa in particular, but Africa also as a whole, I think we are very excited to see the thread that cuts through, that talks to our fundamentals and our planning, all the aspects that are carried in the NDP, which you find also in the Agenda 2063, and you find in the SDG. Those talk to what you have articulated as your priority areas. We will be looking keenly to see how and what you start with. Infrastructure is very important. You shared the model of China, talking about agriculture, food security, talking about infrastructure, innovation, technology. Those are some of the key elements and pillars of the NDP, Agenda 2063, and the SDGs. So yes, we will be watching and waiting in anticipation. And just to close off on the 4 elements that you say are your differentiator, the newness, as you say, the speed of implementation, being part of the solution, raising capital in the member countries and member states, and approaching from a partnership position, a win-win position. And then you said somewhere that you used best practice. But when I listened to what you were articulating next practice, which is going to do different from what Ambassador Mpoko was saying, that we are wanting to achieve different things speedily, effectively. In China, 600 million people were taken out of poverty in 2 years, you said. We hope that to be the case for all the developing countries. We hope that to be the case in particular for Africa. We need to move out of the developing economies and make space for the least developing economies to take that position. We must move to the next level. So we are all here to give support to what you are going to do. And your 4 deputies, we will, as South Africa, support you in whatever way that we can assist. The projects are there. We're just waiting for you to implement. And as Deputy Chairman of South African Council on International Relations, we will be engaging with you on a number of the issues. Thank you very much for your time. And to each one of you, thank you for being here.
I think Memaponya has successfully concluded the deliberations. And once more, Excellencies, from all corners of the world, I see colleagues here from Europe, Asia, Africa, from Latin America, from the Middle East, from Australasia, from everywhere. We really want to thank you for your presence. The meeting is adjourned, and you can mingle around, network. The podium here will move down, so you can have a chat with them as they move down. Thanks very much, colleagues, all of us. They have refreshment also there. Thanks.
To be there in line, no. Politicians have agreed to order and
Go on standby, yeah. Is that? Is happening? I'm not sure. I'm not.
She spoke well, she's a good listener.
Yeah, she's a very good
listener. I'm told.
Okay, Prapo.
Yeah.
Dialed you yet? Have they dialed you yet?
No.
I want to change the KV.
Okay, cool. Okay. Shouldn't have to. Okay, no problem. But very interesting speech. Very, very great for Africa, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, but do you think in terms of beneficiation for local businesses and enterprises, it'll trickle down? more pre-recorded. Okay.
And then what are the story later?
Okay, so like just a question,
Pre-record whatever.
and then I'll pre-record it and then I'll throw to it later.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for speaking to us on SABC News, Maponya. Firstly, what is your reaction in terms of the content of the speech about the National Development Bank, the Africa Development Bank?
Well, it's very exciting to hear what Mr. Kamath has to say. How they want to differentiate themselves as the bank, wanting to develop partnerships with member countries, but also with other members who may not necessarily be the member countries. The first members are the 5 member countries, but I think they were going to open the process to other member countries to participate. But just other aspects of the detail are also very exciting.
Right. One of the aspects is, of course, the scope of the relationship with the bank and those it helps to finance. He was saying that they're moving away from the traditional loaner or lender client relationship to more of a win-win situation. What do you make of that? Is this something that's sustainable, that can work for particularly the Africa developing markets?
Absolutely. I think that is one of the key differentiators. We know how the old traditional banks, be they commercial banks, merchant banks, or development banks, we know how they are structured and how rigid they can be, and for good reason, I suppose, because that's how they are structured. But the new development bank has an opportunity to do things differently. They know the challenges and they are addressing their challenges here. They are wanting to address it and be quick, so speed is one of the key elements. The partnerships that they want to develop with the countries, I think, is a key element, because you look at developmental holistically, not only as a lender, borrower, but what are the other underlying elements that impact on a loan or a debt that you provide.
And this will, in your opinion, have a trickle-down effect whereby it just doesn't benefit a few and has a overall positive effect right down to the man on the street, do you think?
It should, because they are a development bank in their nature, so they will look at infrastructure projects or developmental projects, as it were. But when you look at the value chain and what they seek to achieve, you will find that a lot of opportunities will open up for smaller enterprises and other suppliers to develop, whether it's new businesses. There is, along the value chain, opportunities for this financing to trickle down and unlock other economic activity.
Right. And finally, in your opinion, how do you think this will be received by big traditional money lenders from the West who in the past Africa had to go cap in hand to seek finance for infrastructure, for development? It seems that they've been cut out of the equation. Do you think that they'll receive these news welcomingly and in good spirits?
With any competition, people get uncomfortable. And I think we've already started seeing, even before it was finalized, it was said it will never happen, and now it has happened, and there are all sorts of things that are being thrown around, that it's a startup, it may not succeed, there are challenges. There will always be challenges, whether you're established or new. But the fact that it's a new bank, they have learned from best practice, and now they're able to look at new practice and the next practice.
Thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for that.
Lovely
Thank
meeting
you.
you
It's been
too.
lovely. Thank you very much. The pleasure was mine.
That's all right. So, that's all right. So I think is it a rap or what is happening?
Sorry. Okay, yes. Yes, I think so. The one-on-one, the...
Minister. On the man.
Yeah.
Oh, so what the camera demo?
Yes, yes.
That's fine. Okay, because he hold for the cables.
So what I'll do, Mr. Kamath, I will do a short little intro into camera, and then I'll start my question directly.
You should roll.
Oh, okay.
Make it a call to go and see somebody.
Oh, all right. We'll get in there. We'll keep it also very as brief as possible. Testing 1 2, testing 1 2, 1 2 3 4 5. 1 2 3 4 5 5 4 3 2 1. Testing the mic, talking loud and clear. This is how I'll be talking. This is the level I'll be pitching it, and we're about ready to get going now. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Are they happy with the sound levels? And yes, it's very bright here on stage. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 10 9 8 7 6 5 4 3 2 1. I can count. 1 2 3 4 5 5 4 3 2 1. 1 2 3 4 5 5 4. Okay. 1 2 3 4 5. I'll speak like this. 1 2 3 4 5. Well, I'm joined now by the BRICS Development Bank new president, Mr. Kamath. Mr. Kamath, you delivered a public lecture here, and in your speech you basically highlighted the importance of South-to-South relations and the fact that the BRICS Development Bank will now be coming in as a partner rather than a lender to a consumer relationship. Why was it important to stress this relationship?
I think for a long time, the developing countries have had this feeling that development banks, in a way, talk to them as a borrower-lender relationship, and not as a partner relationship, because one way to look at it is a partnership for economic development. And we thought that we would position ourselves in that context, so we internalize and understand their needs and work together.
And in terms of positioning itself, the BRICS New Development Bank, what kind of capital base are you working on? And can your members expect that you'll hit the ground running?
In fact, we have been set up 4 months back. Our foundation is ready, and we will make our first loans in April of the coming year. So I think that's about as fast that you can do, go with a bank. The capital base, there's a set schedule in terms of capital. Capital that is talked of in the Articles of Association is 100 billion. Of course, we may not need all that capital to start with. There's a commitment to bring in 10 billion of capital in a phased manner over the next few years, with the first tranche of capital coming in next month.
That's a very, very tight time frame. And in terms of your expectations, in terms of engagement, what are your expectations from the countries, member countries who come and request a loan and are granted one?
That is what typically happens. You engage in a dialogue with the country as to what it expects its need to be, and you work in a win-win way to make that possible. I would say that we already have a set of projects that most of our member countries have already shared. And as far as South Africa is concerned, we have an appraisal team coming in today to start appraising the projects that they have forwarded to us.
And what will be your key focus in terms of the proposals from countries?
Key focus is clearly infrastructure and sustainable borrowing for sustainable purposes. So we will stay within that guideline. And within infrastructure is a very wide mandate. We could look at any type of infrastructure. Again, in terms of currencies, in terms of the instruments that we use, there are no constraints. It's very flexible.
And in terms of servicing the loans, what kind of formula are you looking at? It looks like it's a bit too good to be true.
I will put it this way, that we do not want a formula-driven loan structure. When you look at a developing country, each country may have a different character. A country may say that this project, for us to make it viable, is going to take us 20 years. You may look at a long tenor. And somebody else could say that, well, this project, we believe, given where we are, can service the loan in 10 to 12 years. We'll design a loan appropriately. Of course, we will do our own evaluation sitting with the borrower country. So that's how we will work.
Right. And in terms of keeping the borrower countries honest, and in terms of keeping them, making sure that they service their loans and don't default, how will this be managed?
These are all sovereign relationships. Our members are sovereigns. They have consequences in terms of their default, because that's at a sovereign level. So I think there is an inbuilt discipline in the process. I would think the real answer to your question is, if the project is worthwhile, if the project is going to add value to the country, clearly that loan will be serviced.
And in terms of Africa's prospects, we see that Africa's got obviously the youngest population in the world, rapidly mobile, upwardly mobile, rapidly urbanizing. Is this a key plus in terms of the bank's outlook?
You know, if you look at the last the development process in the last 15, 20, 25 years, first it was China, and they grew at 10% for a sustained period. The result brought 600 million people out of poverty, and per capita incomes are now reaching levels where they probably may not be considered an emerging country, but they have stated that we would like to be treated as an emerging country and participate with other emerging countries. The next engine, little later, was India. They started growing and still growing at upwards of 7%. And I believe the next big engine is Africa, the whole continent of Africa. So there's an enormous excitement when I look at Africa as the next engine of growth. And I think it's these three countries which will keep the global economy going for the foreseeable future, I would think, right through to your 2063 agenda.
Mr. Kamath, we're going to have to leave it there for now. Thank you very much for speaking to us here on SABC News. Well, that was the president of the BRICS New Development Bank, Mr. Kamath, outlining the vision of the bank and why it is important for the bank to finance the development projects, especially in Africa, with South Africa being the key player initially. But, of course, the bank also has its own plans to spread out to the rest of the continent in line with Agenda 2063. Thank you very much for making time in your schedule. I really appreciate it.